You were hired help, not family. Sign the waiver or leave with nothing. My husband. Travis. Toss the settlement papers onto the porch. Erica, his mistress, stood behind him. She was already holding my winter coat. He raised his phone. The screen showed the number for the intensive care unit. Make a scene. Rachel, Travis said. I call the attending physician. I am her only son. I have the right to pull the plug tonight. He pulled the heavy brass house key from my fingers. The metal was freezing. I did not beg. I did not ask him to reconsider. I looked at the phone. There was a single piece of paper sitting in a locked drawer downtown. He thought he held all the power. He had no idea whose house he was standing in. I know how it feels when the people you trusted most use your kindness against you. Tell me where you are listening from, and what time it is there. I read every comment. Let's go back to where this really started. 12 days before I stood in the rain without a key. The hospital called me at 2 a.m. My mother-in-law, Eleanor, had suffered a massive stroke. I drove behind the ambulance. Travis did not answer his phone until noon. When the neurologist told us the coma was irreversible, Travis did not ask about her comfort. He asked the doctor about the medical proxy. He assumed it defaulted to him. He moved Erica into the house 48 hours later. He wanted to secure the property before the lawyers got involved. That was why he forced me out. He needed physical possession of the house. He needed me gone so he could liquidate her assets to cover his failing business debts. I walked down the driveway. The rain soaked through my sweater. I did not look back at the windows. I let him have his victory tonight. I needed to find a motel room with a strong internet connection. My real work was about to begin. The motel room on Route 9 smelled like old smoke and damp carpet. It was 3:15 in the morning. I sat on the edge of the mattress and opened my laptop. 10 years ago, I was 2 years away from making partner at a mid-sized law firm downtown. Then Eleanor had her first mild stroke. Travis said we could not afford full-time nursing. I gave up my desk. I traded courtrooms for doctors' waiting rooms. For 3,650 days. I made her morning tea, managed her physical therapy, and kept her alive. Travis called me a glorified housemaid. I let him. I connected to the motel's wireless network. I opened my encrypted legal drive. I scrolled past the blank medical proxy forms and typed a specific date into the search bar, October 12th, 2019. A single document appeared. It was an email thread with a retired notary public. I clicked the attachment. The first page loaded slowly. There was a scanned image of a heavy red notary seal at the bottom. Looking at that red ink brought the afternoon back perfectly. Eleanor had been sitting in her sunroom. Her hands were shaking, but her mind was entirely sharp. She had just caught Travis transferring $5,000 from her savings account into his failing logistics company. He will sell the house while I am dying in it. She had told me. She handed me the original deed. You are the lawyer. Rachel, build a fortress. Make sure he cannot break in. I spent 3 weeks drafting the paperwork. I built an irrevocable trust. It was the most ironclad document of my career. It transferred the house, the accounts, and every piece of medical authority directly to me as the sole trustee. Travis was completely written out. Once Eleanor signed it and the notary stamped it with that red seal, it could never be undone. Not by Travis. Not even by Eleanor herself. I stared at the screen. People who are pushed out into the rain usually have nothing to fight back with. They just lose. Travis thought I was one of those people. He thought I was just a tired woman with a suitcase and $35 in my pocket. He did not know I held the deed to the ground he was standing on. I closed the laptop. I did not need to drive back and scream at him. I did not need to fight him in the driveway. The trap was already set. I let him keep digging. The neon sign outside Unit 4 buzzed constantly. I paid $165 for 3 nights in advance. I sat at the wobbly veneer desk, opened my laptop, and connected to the motel's network. I logged into the state's secure probate portal. I did not use any special hacking software. I just typed in my state bar number and my password. I accessed Eleanor's file. I downloaded the original medical directives and 14 pages of sealed proxy forms. I saved them to an encrypted folder on my desktop. That was my first quiet victory. I held the absolute legal right to Eleanor's life and assets right there on my hard drive. But in my profession, a paper trail demands absolute patience. And patience always comes with a price. The price was my reputation. Travis was not being patient. He was being loud. By Thursday morning, my phone started vibrating on the nightstand. I had 9 unread messages. Travis had created a family group chat. He excluded me, but his cousin forwarded me the screenshots. Travis told the extended family I had suffered a mental breakdown. He claimed I demanded $50,000 to stay and help. When he refused to pay me out of his mother's accounts, he said, I packed my bags and abandoned a dying woman. He introduced Erica to the family as a professional grief counselor he hired to manage the house. At 4 p.m, the phone rang. The caller ID showed Aunt Beverly. She had eaten Thanksgiving dinner at my table for 11 straight years. I answered it. I cannot believe you, Beverly said. She did not say hello. Eleanor treated you like a daughter. Rachel, Travis is completely devastated. I listened to the static on the line. Travis is not alone in that house. Beverly. He told us you got jealous of his new assistant. She snapped. How could you be so entirely selfish while your mother-in-law is on life support? You knew about Erica. I said, my voice was perfectly level. You saw them at the country club last August. Beverly went silent for a 3-second beat. The line hummed. That is his private marriage business. She finally said, her voice rising, we are talking about you abandoning a helpless woman. This is what happens when a family protects a toxic son. When a whole group decides to keep a dirty secret, the person who finally walks away is instantly labeled the villain. Beverly was not actually angry that I left. She was angry that my leaving threatened the quiet illusion they had all agreed to maintain. I looked at the downloaded proxy forms on my screen. I could have emailed the PDF to her right then. I could have proved I was the only one legally protecting Eleanor. I didn't. If I defended myself now, Beverly would tell Travis. He would realize I still had teeth. He would hire his own lawyers to contest the trust before he committed any actual crimes. I needed him to feel entirely safe. You are right. Beverly, I said. I left. I hung up the phone. I let her keep her comfortable lie. I sat in the cheap chair and watched the digital clock flip to 4:15. Travis was painting himself as the victim. I just had to wait and see how much of his mother's money he was going to steal to complete the picture. Friday night. The rain finally stopped. I sat at the veneer desk in Unit 4. My phone screen lit up with bank notifications. I still had viewing access to Eleanor's primary checking account. Travis did not realize I could see the ledger. He assumed his mother's money was already his. At 6:15, a charge appeared for $412 at a local catering company. At 7:30, a charge for $285 cleared at a premium liquor store. By 9 o'clock, he spent another $150 on a luxury floral delivery. Travis and Erica were hosting a celebration. I could picture it perfectly. The catered trays on the granite kitchen island, the expensive gin poured into Eleanor's crystal glasses. His mother was lying in a hospital bed with a machine breathing for her. And he was entertaining guests with her retirement funds. He was probably telling them how hard this tragedy was on him. I did not call him. I did not freeze the debit card. The checking account was just the surface water. The real money, the estate, was locked safely behind the trust. I watched the green numbers turn red. I was gathering evidence of fiduciary abuse. Every dollar he spent on that party was another nail in his eventual indictment. On Saturday morning, I drove to the hospital. I parked in the employee structure. I stayed away from the intensive care unit. Travis had officially listed himself as the primary contact. If I caused a disruption at the nurses' station, hospital security would escort me out. That would only strengthen his claim that I was unstable. I went down to the basement cafeteria. The air smelled like burnt coffee and industrial floor cleaner. At 10:40, Nurse Carla walked in. She had managed Eleanor's outpatient care for 7 years. She bought a black coffee and sat across from me at the small plastic table. She looked exhausted. "He is moving fast." "Rachel," Carla said. She kept her voice low. "Travis brought in a new specialist yesterday afternoon. A neurologist from some private clinic in Westlake." I set my tea down. "Eleanor's primary neurologist is out of town until Tuesday." "I know," Carla said, "but this new guy wrote a completely new evaluation. He declared her clinically brain dead. He signed the paperwork recommending the immediate withdrawal of all life support." The fluorescent lights hummed above us. Travis was not just stealing money. He was falsifying medical evaluations to end his mother's life faster, just to trigger the reading of her old will. "Dr. Miller is the attending," I said. "He knows Eleanor's case." Carla shook her head. "Dr. Miller is a rule follower. Travis is the biological son." He presented a signed document from a licensed specialist. Dr. Miller accepted it. "He is drafting the official order to remove the feeding tube by Monday morning." That was the wall. Travis had found a dirty doctor willing to sign a fraudulent document. The hospital bureaucracy was a machine, and it was blindly following the paperwork Travis fed it. Dr. Miller was an external force I could not simply argue with. He was protecting his own medical license by deferring to the son. Carla looked at me. Her hands were shaking slightly around her paper cup. "Why aren't you doing anything?" she asked. "You are a lawyer. You let him throw you out of the house. Now you are letting him pull the plug. He just does whatever he wants. And everyone lets him." She was right about his past. Travis had always skated by. When he bankrupted his first business, Eleanor bailed him out. When he crashed his car, he blamed the other driver and faced no consequences. But escaping immediate punishment does not mean you are immune. It just means the bill is compounding interest. A toxic person mistakes a delayed consequence for a canceled debt. Travis thought he was winning because the trap had not snapped shut yet. He did not realize that every forged signature was just upgrading his future charges from a misdemeanor to a federal felony. I looked at Carla. "Keep her comfortable this weekend. Do not argue with Dr. Miller. Do not alert Travis." Carla frowned. "Rachel, if that tube comes out on Monday." "It won't," I said. I left the hospital and drove back to the motel. I locked the deadbolt on the door. I opened my laptop. I logged into the State Medical Board's public database. I typed in the name of the Westlake neurologist Travis had hired. The doctor had 2 previous disciplinary strikes for accepting kickbacks. Travis had bought a diagnosis. I opened a new email. I addressed it to the Chief of Legal Affairs for the hospital network. I attached the irrevocable trust document. I attached the medical proxy that designated me as the sole decision-maker for Eleanor. I drafted a single paragraph. I stated that any alteration to Eleanor's life support would result in a massive malpractice lawsuit against the hospital. I cited State Statute 402 regarding irrevocable medical proxies. I made it explicitly clear that Travis held zero legal authority to authorize any changes, and the external neurologist's report was a fraudulent document procured by an unauthorized party. I did not click send. If I sent it on Saturday, hospital legal would notify Travis immediately. He would realize I held the trust. He would stop his financial transfers. He would have time to hire defense attorneys and hide the money he was currently stealing. I needed him to feel absolutely invincible for one more day. I needed him to reach into the main estate accounts. I set the email on a delayed delivery timer. It was scheduled to hit the hospital legal department's inbox at exactly 7:30 on Monday morning. The hospital attorneys would see the red notary seal on my trust document. They would panic. They would place a hard legal freeze on Eleanor's medical file 30 minutes before Dr. End. Miller started his rounds. The medical procedure would be blocked instantly, long before anyone touched her. I closed the laptop. I had secured her safety. Now, I just had to wait and see what he would try to steal on Sunday. Sunday morning was quiet. I sat in the motel lobby. The coffee in the styrofoam cup was cold. I watched my laptop screen. At 10:14, the pending transaction on Eleanor's reserve account changed status. It went from pending to cleared. Travis had just wired $85,000 from his mother's emergency medical fund directly to his failing logistics company. He used an old signature authorization on her joint checking account, a standing he legally lost the day the trust was signed. That made his withdrawal documented wire fraud. The balance on the screen plummeted. I walked over to the front desk. The motel manager, an older woman named Martha, was reading a magazine. I asked her if I could use the office printer. I forwarded her the bank confirmation PDF and the downloaded medical proxy files. Martha hit print. The heavy laser printer churned out 12 pages. "Looks like serious business," Martha said. She handed me the warm stack of paper. "It is," I said. I looked at the top sheet. It was the wire transfer receipt, with the transaction ID printed clearly in black ink. This was why I had stayed silent for 5 days. This was why I had let Aunt Beverly yell at me. And why I had let him throw me out into the rain. In probate law, intent is just an argument. A judge will debate intent for months. But a completed wire transfer to a personal business account is a documented breach of fiduciary duty. It is a textbook felony. I had to let him actually commit the crime before I could lock him in the cage. I slid the papers into a plain manila folder. I pulled out my phone and dialed Travis's number. He answered on the 4th ring. There was background noise. It sounded like a restaurant. "I am very busy." "Rachel," Travis said. His voice was thick with unearned authority. "If you are calling to beg for a larger severance, the answer is still no." I kept my voice perfectly flat. "I am not calling for money. I am calling to sign the waiver." The line went quiet for a second. "You are finally acting rational," he said. "I will sign the spousal relinquishment and step away from the estate." I told him, "But I will not do it on the kitchen counter. We do it today. At 2 o'clock. At the county courthouse. We file it directly with the probate clerk." "Fine," Travis snapped. "I will be there. And I am bringing my own legal counsel. Do not think you can pull any last-minute tricks. Make sure Erica stays home." I added, "She is not family. She has no standing at the clerk's office." Travis laughed. A short, sharp sound. "Erica is picking out new tile for the master bathroom. She has better things to do than watch you surrender." I ended the call. He was bringing a lawyer. He wanted to make a show of force to ensure I backed down completely. He was paying an expensive attorney just to watch him secure his stolen inheritance. I walked back to my room. I packed my small suitcase. I changed into the tailored navy suit I used to wear to federal court. I picked up the manila folder. The paper inside felt heavier than it had 10 minutes ago. It was time to go to the courthouse. I arrived at the county courthouse at 1:45 on Monday afternoon. The second-floor hallway smelled like floor wax and stale coffee. Travis walked out of the elevator at exactly 2 o'clock. He did not come alone. A woman in a tailored white suit walked half a step ahead of him. Her name was Vivian. She charged $600 an hour and had a reputation for burying opposing counsel in endless paperwork. She did not even look at me when she sat down. She just checked her heavy gold watch. Travis sat across from me at the small glass table. He slid a 4-page document toward me. A silver pen sat on top of it. "Sign the relinquishment." "Rachel," Travis said. He leaned back, lacing his fingers together. "Or Vivian files an embezzlement suit against you by 3 o'clock. We will tell the judge you stole the missing $85,000. You will spend the next 5 years fighting us in federal court. And you will lose." I looked at the silver pen. I looked at Vivian, who was already typing an email on her phone, completely bored by a surrender she had seen 100 times before. Travis smiled. He thought he had built an inescapable corner. He had bought the most expensive gun in town to ensure I walked away with nothing. I reached into my leather briefcase. I did not pick up his pen. I pulled out the heavy manila folder from the motel printer. I set it down directly on top of his waiver. The glass table made a sharp, solid sound. Vivian finally stopped typing. Vivian opened the manila folder. She bypassed the bank transfer receipt and looked at the second document. She saw the heavy parchment paper. She saw the red notary seal from October 12th, 2019. She read the first paragraph. Her manicured finger stopped moving down the page. "What is it?" Travis asked. He leaned forward. Did she forge something? Vivian read the second page. She looked at Travis. The boredom was completely gone from her eyes. Travis saw her face. He panicked. He reached across the glass table. He lunged forward, grabbing the edge of the trust document with both hands. Trying to rip it in half, Vivian slapped his hand away. The smack echoed off the marble walls. "Do not touch this," Vivian said. Her voice was sharp and entirely furious. Exactly 14 people in the hallway stopped talking. 2 bailiffs by the metal detectors turned around. 3 paralegals at the filing counter looked over. "You hired me for a standard spousal relinquishment," Vivian said. She stood up and shoved the paperwork back toward him. "You did not tell me your mother signed a fully executed, irrevocable trust 5 years ago. You did not tell me Rachel is the sole designated trustee." Travis stared at her. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. "You had me threaten her with embezzlement," Vivian continued. She did not lower her voice. The entire hallway was listening. "You did that while you were the one who wired $85,000 out of a protected trust account yesterday." Vivian. "Wait." Travis stammered. He tried to grab her sleeve. He tried to pivot. "We can fight this. I am here, son. We can say Rachel manipulated her. We can still win. You submitted a fraudulent neurological evaluation to a hospital to bypass a legal trust," Vivian said. She snapped her leather briefcase shut. "That is a federal crime. I am withdrawing as your counsel immediately. Do not call my office." She walked toward the elevators. She did not look back. Travis sat alone at the glass table. The strangers in the hallway were still staring at him. I sat perfectly still. I filed the original documents with the probate clerk at 1:30. I said, "I also sent certified digital copies to Aunt Beverly and the rest of your family group chat 10 minutes ago. Beverly knows exactly why I left the house now." Travis looked down at his hands. They were shaking violently. "The $85,000 you wired to your logistics company is now flagged as felony theft." I told him, "Your business accounts are frozen. The house is legally mine. You hold absolutely no medical authority over Eleanor." He tried to stand up. His knees hit the underside of the glass table. The heavy glass rattled. He lost his balance and sank back into the cheap chair. "You have nothing," I said. I stood up. I picked up my briefcase. I left him sitting in the cold hallway, waiting for the police. The probate court froze Travis's business accounts by Wednesday morning. He was $50,000 in debt to his own logistics company and facing federal fraud charges. Erica did not stay for the arraignment. When the credit card stopped working, she packed her bags, took the diamond earrings he bought with Eleanor's money, and drove back to her sister's apartment. Travis was left completely alone in a cheap rental, waiting for a trial he could not afford to win. I moved back into the house on a Thursday. The first thing I did was call a locksmith. He replaced every deadbolt on the property. I held the new brass keys in my hand. They were heavy, and they were cold, but they finally belonged to me. I walked into the quiet kitchen. I turned on the stove. I waited for the kettle to whistle. I pulled down 2 ceramic mugs from the upper cabinet. I poured the hot water and set them on the granite counter, right where we used to sit. Eleanor was never going to wake up to drink hers. I knew that. I sat on the wooden stool and drank mine anyway. You cannot evict someone from a fortress they designed themselves. I know exactly what you were screaming at your screen right there at the beginning. You were yelling, "Why did she pack her suitcase? Why did she walk out into the rain without fighting back? Why didn't she just pull out the trust document on day 1 and throw him out instead?" It is so easy to judge from the outside. But when you are inside a toxic family dynamic, the rules of reality get warped. This is a classic case of intermittent reinforcement, what psychologists call the slot machine effect. When you spend 10 years caring for someone else, toxic family members do not treat you terribly every single second. They throw you tiny crumbs of approval, unpredictable ones. A polite Thanksgiving dinner here. A rare complimentaire. You get addicted to the hope that if you just sacrifice a little more of yourself, your career, your time, your sanity, they will finally see your worth. You become a professional peacekeeper, convinced that enduring their disrespect is just the rent you pay to exist in their world. Rachel gave up her path to becoming a law firm partner for those crumbs. But when Travis threw her out into the rain and threatened his own mother's life, he didn't just break her heart. He broke the illusion. And when the illusion breaks, a smart woman gets to work. Look at the sheer tactical brilliance of Rachel's execution. We can learn 3 massive moves here. First, she used the power of the villain's ego. Travis assumed that because she was a caregiver, she was powerless. She let him believe that. She didn't correct Aunt Beverly on the phone, because defending her reputation would have cost her the element of surprise. Second, she used the trap of rope. She didn't just step in to stop Travis from unplugging the life support. She waited in that cheap motel until he actively wired $85,000 into his failing business. She didn't just want to stop him, she needed him to commit a documented, undeniable federal felony. She gave him enough rope to completely tie his own hands. And finally, the decoy target. She let him bring a $600 an hour shark of a lawyer to the courthouse. She let him feel like the absolute predator. Right up until the second Vivian read that paper and realized she was representing a criminal. Rachel weaponized his own arrogance to dismantle his entire life. Your dignity is not a negotiation. And your boundaries are not up for debate. If you are building a fortress for someone else, make sure your name is on the deed. Have you ever had to walk away in silence just to build your own case? Have you ever let someone think they were winning while you held the real cards? Tell me your story in the comments below. I read every single one. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.